will be showcasing the case study of Sensors.Africa, focusing on AI, climate change, and sensors within the African continent. My name is Alicia Olago. I'm an environmental scientist and researcher, and at Code for Africa, I am the Senior Product Manager of Sensors.Africa. And I can give you a little bit of background about Sensors.Africa. But before that, I would like to mention Code for Africa that actually houses Sensors.Africa, which is the largest indigenous network of civic technology, open data, and data journalism labs. Moving forward, I would like to share about who Sensors.Africa is and what we do, our technology portfolio, our data, move on to some projects, deployment challenges, community-centered approach, and lastly, I will share our key milestones to date. If I can begin, so who are we? Sensors.Africa is a Pan-African citizen science initiative that uses sensors to monitor air, water, sound, and radiation, as you can see on my slide. And it's more so to provide actionable information to African cities and environs. And this here is the team of hardware engineers and technologists and myself, as you can see. And the hardware engineers and technologists on here are the ones who locally develop and assemble the sensors that we utilize to monitor the environmental pollution across the African cities. Our core values as an initiative that's housed by Code for Africa, of course. One key thing is open data and, of course, transparency of that data. And we also have community ownership and participation, which is crucial when you're collecting any kind of information from any society or any community. And then, of course, environmental justice and equity, which is the reason why we are monitoring environmental data within the cities. And of course, technology for social good, which is why we have the team of engineers I just mentioned that develop the sensors that we use for our work. Again, if I can share some statistics of why we are doing what we do. One big issue is the causes, or rather the impacts of air pollution globally. And we see that it impacts about 6.7 million people. We have 6.7 premature deaths annually that are related to both these kinds of air pollution. And then coming back to the African continent, which experiences the worst air pollution with high exposure in both rural and urban settings. And then based on that exposure, we do know that there's marginalized communities that, of course, will be disproportionately affected by these types of pollution. And then lastly, governments, African governments have very limited monitoring infrastructure. Case in point why Sensors.Africa aims to provide this kind of data. Right. And based on the statistics I have just shared, there are that comes about with people who live in informal settlements or people who just live in disadvantaged spaces, and more so people in rural spaces that have basically no access to any services that would sustain their environment. And then another key issue is the fact that limited data perpetuates injustice. And we have seen this in different areas, not just Africa, also across the world. And lastly, communities, all communities require evidence for advocacy. And that's why we provide that specific data for them to be able to speak up to the issues they have within their spaces, within their environments. If I can move on to the type of technology that we develop at Sensors.Africa. And I will begin with our air quality sensors, right? So we have done extensive work on air quality monitoring. And our sensors, our air quality sensors measure particulate matter 1, 2.5, 10 as well. We also measure relative humidity, temperature, and of course, GPS to be able to know where exactly the source of pollution is coming from. And because we use IoT systems, this data is collected in real time. Apart from the air quality sensors, we also have our noise sensors, which is just, I would call it our baby at this point in time, because we have our prototype that we want to begin disseminating across different cities of this continent. And the noise sensor measures decibel level monitoring. And of course, you get 24/7 noise mapping, similar to the air quality sensors, because we're using the powers of IoT to do this. And we know that we never have enough data, right? So because of that, we have been trying to find different ways for us to have multimodal data sets, for us to have more information and provide more data for analysis, for us to be able to protect the communities and the environments that we live in every day. And because of that, Sensors.Africa is now moving forward to what we call Earth observation, which is really embracing the idea of AI. And this will allow us to be able to merge data sets, right? Merge multiple data sets. An example is a data set of satellite data. Here would use, of course, open access satellite data. And then we have drone data. And with drone data here, I will speak and mention our other sister initiative within Code for Africa known as African Drone that empowers drone pilots within the African continent. And we plan to work with them as well to be able to capture these kinds of images, videos that can be used to provide a closer resolution as opposed to satellite data of what is happening within our environmental spaces. And then, of course, the ground-based sensors, which then comes back to what we have done and what is our core, the use of our local sensors, and again, weather stations, which are also definitely placed on the ground as opposed to what you would have in remote sensing of satellites and drones as well. And if I can move on to our actual data. Our data is used by numerous groups. We have students, we have academics, researchers, organizations, communities, NGOs, and even people just in projects who are trying to figure out how they're going to analyze different parameters to be able to speak to and figure out what's going on with their project in general. So, and based off the fact that the groups that use this data are so different, it was important for us to have different breakdowns of how this data can again be digested by the specific individual. And based off of that, we have the sensors API endpoints. And this is for groups who know how to use APIs. Data scientists can speak to this, and computer scientists as well, right? So they can access that. And then we do have a graphic display map that uses an air quality index for you to understand. And you can see this red, green, orange dots that shows you how severe or how good the air is in a specific place. And moving on to that, people who have our sensors, who we call our custodians, normally receive air quality reports monthly, as you can see on the top image. And these reports will be based off of course, WHO 2024 guidelines that will then show you how bad it is or how good it is. As you can see on the blue line on the report, you can see where the line is and you can see how much above it's gone. And this is an example of one of the cities within Nigeria. And then aside from that, we know that researchers need historical data. This is so important for you to be able to analyze and see trends over time. And for that, we use Open Africa, where you can find all our historical archive dating from about 2016 for some cities. Okay, and I can move on to our project portfolio. And I will begin with the Data Innovation Fund, which was actually a project that we worked on in partnership with the World Bank. And this was really a project that was trying to look at how we can use low-cost sensors to kind of capture all the data and be able to have actionable information to support different cities. And this was about 5 years ago. And it involved the deployment of about 160 Yes, 160 air quality sensors and noise sensors within households and informal settlements in Nairobi. And if I can move on to our current ongoing project, which we are very excited about, this is Respira. And this is a project that's again embracing the use of AI and data and how bringing that marriage together. And this is a project in partnership with Egerton University from Kenya, KU Leuven, as you can see the logo. And then we have, of course, Sensors.Africa offering the data. We have Kenya's Meteorological Society that is a partner, they're a key national partner to move things forward. Of course, we have the Nakuru County government because this is for them. And the project is really supposed to enhance their climate resilience. So we are going to use air quality monitoring to enhance climate resilience within Nakuru County. And moving on away from air quality sensors and noise sensors, and now coming to another part of us that's known as sea sensors, right? So with sea sensors, we did have a project a couple of years back where we were tracking dynamite fishing, which is actually a big problem for the biodiversity within the marine world. And with this project, we were able to have sensors within the sea, rather, that were used to pick up acoustic data and be able to provide incidences of underwater blasts, which we all know is very detrimental for all kinds of fish, right? And after that, again, within the water space, and also very relevant for this point in time when the loss and damage issue is a big conversation within the African continent, we do have a project known as Stormwatch. And Stormwatch was really looking at how can we protect our fishermen? How can we protect these people who have their livelihoods and economic activities within the water? So it was a project that was aimed to use a satellite remote sensing, right, and some climate models to be able to project extreme precipitation. That way we can save the lives of fishermen or any other people who are practicing activities within that space. And this was based off Tanzania. Now, I have mentioned our projects. I've shared about our technology. I've told you about our data. Projects and programs do not go without challenges. And for us, our biggest problem will really be around deployment challenges. And this is because if there's a challenge with deployment, it means there's a challenge with our data in itself. And we do not want to have any data caps of any kind. We'd like to have full data sets to be able to support all the different groups I have shared use our data. And this is actually an infrastructural barrier. And within the African space, it manifests in a very similar way, though the urban spaces are a bit better than the rural spaces. As you can see, there are two key challenges, and they're really related to power supply and connectivity. And on power supply, why this is an issue is because our initial sensors really just relied on the grid, right? You would connect the sensor similar to how you'd connect a phone and rely on that to transmit power to the device for it to function, right? But this has not always worked, right? We have a lot of power fluctuations within this continent, whether it's in the urban or rural space. We have a lot of power fluctuations and load shedding sometimes in cities in South Africa, for example. So that is a big challenge. And then you have the rural context. Within the rural context, we have people who are experiencing air pollution or rather just environmental pollution in general. And it is very challenging to collect this kind of data from them because they have no connectivity to the grid. And for that reason, we had to rethink and ask ourselves, how can we do this? And that sent us to rely on solar power for us to be able to, one, charge the batteries and be able to also power the device to be able to power the device with the solar panel itself. And another challenge that's really big for us is connectivity. In I'd say capital cities, we have multiple sources of connection, right? Connectivity. We have Wi-Fi, 3G, 4G. We have all this going on, right? But when you move to the rural spaces, you will probably have very limited cellular coverage and not be able to connect your devices. And for that reason, we had to come up with the option of using one IoT SIM cards that ensure that we can bounce off different networks that are powerful in that specific rural space, depending on where we have deployed the sensor. And aside from that, just to make sure that we do not lose any data, we also had to incorporate memory cards, or rather SD cards, as the techies would call them. And this is really a picture of the infrastructural barriers that we struggle with and keep having to modify the devices to make sure that we're able to provide this actionable information with our environmental data. And now I can move on to how we speak and how we engage the community, which is really, really important in relation to my previous slides on how the human rights impact of not having this type of data collected for you within your space. And for us, this is how we handled it. So pre-deployment, in most cases, we aim to engage the community with people who are leaders within their spaces. And this can be through CBOs, NGOs. It can also be champions. And by champions, I mean a member of that community who is so passionate about the problem and who has been trying to find ways to solve the problem. So this is who we call a champion. And there are cases where the CBOs really just reach out directly to us, similar to the NGOs, and sometimes even citizens who are just concerned about the quality of their air or noise pollution or any other works that we do. And now they are like they carry us and give us the entry, which allows us to be welcomed into that community. Now, once we are inside this community, the next step for us will always be participatory mapping. And this is because that similar person who we are calling a champion, there are situations where they are not everybody's champion within that community, or they are really just biased in what exactly they need to be collected. And for that, we need to have the residents brought together and we need them to be able to speak for their lived experiences and also share the pollution sources that they experience within that space. And that's done, as I said, by participatory mapping. If you look at the picture on the right, you can see people are holding a piece of paper. This is how we identify where is it polluted and listen to them to be able to understand how they handle it, which is really that traditional knowledge to kind of clean their air or manage this pollution levels. And after that, with the same group, we'll then do the site selection. And then we will have positions that have been chosen by the community, not by us coming in and telling them that we can see that this area is polluted. No, we do not live there. We have no idea. They are the only ones who can give us that type of information. And within this engagement, there is an aspect of training, of them understanding what is air pollution, what are the impacts, how can you avoid it, what are the causes, what can the community do to reduce these levels. And after all this has happened, there is some ownership building that happens after interacting with them. And we feel it's because we give them the chance to be able to speak up, share their problems and concerns, and have them feel that they're part and parcel of the data collection from the onset before we set up any devices or before we do any kind of analysis or reporting. And if I can speak more to participatory mapping, which has been very successful for us in terms of interacting with communities. As you can see here, this was a CBO based in Korogocho in Nairobi, one of the informal settlements. And we were at the Inua Dada Foundation. And here you can see the participants had a map with them. And this was really a map of their community, which of course we used using open access data, which is OpenStreetMaps, print out the map for them and have them pinpoint, where do I live? Where is it polluted around me? How is the river? How is the water? How is the sewerage system? Are there any trees? All that information is so important for us to figure out where to place a sensor to be able to capture the data that we need from them. Moving forward from that is now to share with all the work we've done, with all the data that we produce and all the different groups that we do interact with, where are we now and what are our greatest milestones? And the one that I think is very close to our heart is one, you can see on the top right, we have Citizen, which is a really strong, influential media house within the Kenyan space. And with that, there was a feature of about 32 minutes of how a community within Athi River, Syokimau area, which is within the outskirts of Nairobi, has been experiencing poor air pollution due to a factory that was a little bit closer to them, and it was affecting all the residential areas around there. So a few of them reached out to us. We set up the sensor for them, and we were able to actually showed that the particulate matter levels within that space were very bad, and they were really able to correlate that this was the reason why the children were very sick, always having chest problems, pneumonia, all these issues, pulmonary issues were happening within that space. And that was actually very, very powerful. Aside from that, as you can see, there's been a lot of researchers who have been using our data to kind of either speak to how we can make changes in the air pollution space or inform policy as well. And if you look at the bottom journal, you can see that this was some researchers who were trying to use some deep learning approach using our data. Aside from that, again, coming back to informal settlements, again, this is Mukuru in Nairobi. And this was, again, a feature on the newspaper that really showcased everything. And you can see this data on the particulate matter levels. You can see how much red there is. You can see that there was issues with even the daily averages and the exposure. And that was why they came up with this piece that says Mukuru Films put 60 asthma patients a month in hospital. And this just shows you that direct relationship between having a clean environment and your health and why we need this. And again, on the right, you can also see this was the Kenya National Environmental Tribunal. This was a case that went forward because citizens were concerned, and because they had that data, they were able to advocate, speak for themselves. They were able to use the structures that we have for complaints of environmental pollution to be able to get the government to sort out their issues and just in general advocate their plight for change. And yes, I would say that is the last milestone that I can share. I hope that you have enjoyed every bit of this case study, and I look forward to hearing from you. And if you can, follow us on all our pages, visit the Sensors.Africa webpage. You can join us on Slack, and yeah, also follow us on Twitter at Code for Africa. Thank you very much.